to all this stuff on the brain. Again, showing how captured the EPA Water Division politically is on this issue, that they think it's more important to protect the water fluoridation program and all the reputations and all the interests of the dental lobby who are concerned about lawsuits, etc. They're more concerned about protecting this program than the health and the brains of our children. And when people find that out, they're absolutely outraged. As I say, they cannot deny that our children are overexposed to fluoride. You can see it. 41% of American children aged 12 to 15 have dental fluorosis, which is a damage to the enamel. What they would want you to believe is that fluoride could be damaging the growing tooth cells in a baby's body when they're born, without damaging any other tissues in the body. First of all, that's highly unlikely. It's highly likely if you're damaging the teeth, you're damaging the bone, and that has been demonstrated. But also, you have to worry about other tissues, the thyroid gland, the pineal gland, and of course, the brain itself. The evidence is there. They're completely ignoring it. Why? I don't know. You tell me.
Well, to be politically correct, everyone just marches forward and says, I drink my tap water. I eat my food that's been sprayed with fluoride, you know, because the media says you're a kook if you actually know the science. But, Dr. Connett, you don't get into this, but I do. I've got the Rockefeller Foundation documents. We've written articles, more than 10 of them just in November and December of last year at Infowars.com, directly linking to the big tax-free foundations who are eugenicists. And they said, we're going to put things in food and water to lower fertility. Sperm counts down in the West by 87%. Women's fertility way down. We're going to come up with things to add to the water, the White House science czar, to reduce fertility. We know that they want to reduce IQ. This is a social control and population control system, and they knew fully well in the 50s when they pushed it what they'd done, and it's part of a strategic program. Our government and other governments will pay millions of dollars to single third world small cities to make sure they put it in. They'll pay to put in the systems. They'll give them new water treatment just to do it. It's not because they care about people's teeth. This is so cold-blooded. I think that's the final part of the equation that people need to go ahead and face up to. This has all been done by design. You probably, as a scientist, just absolutely, you know, just to, you know, the area of what the of what the chemical's doing, want to get into. But I mean, what can you say to the fact that they know this? And they know what's going on, and they just don't care.
Well, I think, you know, we left motivations to the last chapter in our book, and it's simply the most difficult chapter to write, trying to understand why people continue this stupid practice, which should never have started. Using the water supply to deliver medication is such a stupid thing to do, because you can't control the dose, you can't control who gets it, no individual supervision, absolutely crazy from the word go. So yes, it's a conundrum to understand why. But you know, Alex, when I come on your program, I'm not saying that I agree with everything that you talk about. And when you bring me on, you're not agreeing with everything that I think you'd be horrified with some of the other things that I believe in, attitudes and so on. So I think we have to stick to that. I will talk about the science. I think there's a huge question mark about motivation. I'm more inclined to think of economic interest. I think of the economic interest of the sugar industry, which was on record before fluoridation began, that they needed to find a means of reducing tooth decay without reducing sugar consumption. Knowing how strong the sugar lobby is, I think that is a pressure that needs to be thoroughly
Well, Doctor, I totally agree with you. I mean, anything that the social engineers do, they have to get with all of their main lobbies, and they always go with things that help them on so many fronts. We know from uranium purification, from aluminum smelting, from power plant scrubbers, from the phosphate fertilizer industry. They've got all these toxic byproducts that they'd have to pay to dispose of or to store. And so if they can push at the end of World War II with all of this, you know, industrial waste sitting around, that it's good for you and put it in the water, then win-win-win. I'm saying at the social engineering top of the pyramid, though, they also like it because we know fluoride attacks the pineal. associated with higher consciousness and higher brain functions. It does attack the thyroid. It attacks reproduction. It attacks the bones. We know that from all the studies that you're such an expert on. So my issue is I'm saying that is a central factor, but I absolutely concur with you overall. Let's talk about the fact of when they call it sodium fluoride, what are they really putting in the water? Because I've read what the city of Austin buys and what's in that and pays, close to $1 million a year. I've looked at, there's different variants. A lot of cities get it from China. And it's turned out that there's hundreds and hundreds of chemicals in there. So I have found and told people to go after cities and counties and water districts to say, okay, let them debate fluoride and say it's really good for you. We're already starting to win that with the facts. What about the radioactive isotopes that you write about in your book that's now big news in Texas? The state knew and covered it up for decades. It now turns with the federal government. Of course, they're talking about the cover-up, but not why is it in there, where did it come from? So that's going on. The lead, the mercury, the arsenic, the other things they're adding, I think that's the Achilles heel.
Well, yeah, a lot of people agree with you. Over 90% of the chemicals used to fluoridate public water supplies in the United States come from the scrubbing liquor of the wet scrubbers used in the phosphate fertilizer industry. And the substance that is produced in those scrubbers is called hexafluorosilicic acid. It's not produced naturally in the environment. It's a toxic waste. It contains a whole bunch of other crap. It can't be dumped into the sea by international law. It can't be dumped locally because it's too concentrated. But if someone buys it from them, it becomes a product. And once it's a product, then you can add it to the drinking water. Outrageous, but true. And apropos your issue about radioactive isotopes, the same rock which is mined in Florida for this purpose is also mined for uranium. And therefore, one of the things which may well be in this stuff are trace amounts of radioactive isotopes, the daughter breakdown isotopes from the decay of uranium. So, yeah, there's a huge concern in this stuff. But again, why on earth would you put a hazardous waste into people's drinking water? So we got two bizarre things here. Number one, we're using the public drinking water supply to deliver medication, which has not been done with any other substance since fluoridation began in 1945. And secondly, we're using the public water supply as a way of getting rid of an industry's hazardous waste. It's bizarre. It's bizarre. If you wanted to do this rationally, supposing that somebody could prove to you, Alex, that swallowing fluoride actually reduces tooth decay, and the best way to deliver it is through water, then the obvious way to do it is to make up bottled water at 1 part per million and make it freely available in pharmacies and supermarkets. If you did it that way, you could control the chemical that you use. You could use pharmaceutical-grade sodium fluoride instead of industrial-grade hexafluorosilicic acid, number one. Number two, you could make up the concentration 1 part per million and tell people only drink 1 liter of this a day. That way you control the dose, the very thing that we can't do when it's in the water supply. And because if you use this approach, you'd use a minuscule fraction of the fluoride that is currently being used. And therefore you could afford to use sodium fluoride. 99% of the fluoride that you add to water goes nowhere near people's stomach, goes nowhere near their teeth. It's flushed down the toilet. It's used to wash cars and everything else. And the only reason that they can afford to do that is because they're using this hazardous product, this industrial-grade material, that the phosphate fertilizer industry is only too happy to have stupid people buy it from them instead of paying a fortune to get rid of it in hazardous waste facilities.
Well, I like the analogy of, let's say it's reportedly good for your teeth, which we now are learning that's a fraud. And the government's having to admit it and saying, don't have 6-year-olds or younger brush their teeth with it, but still it's all on the store shelves. If I don't want to get sunburned and I put on 35 level sunblock, I don't drink it to keep my skin from getting burned. So why are you drinking this if it's supposedly for the teeth? Why isn't it just done topically? But shifting gears out of that, you now, and I can play the newscast if you haven't seen it, the Japanese government, U.S. government, Fox News reporting it, they're all saying they want to put lithium in the water to make us behave well, so showing they want to social engineer with it. There's a big push. And statins in the water, which a lot of evidence, medical science shows isn't actually helping with cholesterol, and it looks like another fraud. But the point is, they're now admitting and trying to condition the public to move towards total medicalization of the water and turning it into some type of drug-interacting stew. Not to mention, most water supply is already contaminated from runoff with Prozac and everything else. So they're on record, and so is the White House science czar, saying they want to do things to us through the water.
That's insane. It is absolutely insane. From a medical point of view, this is insane. And let me go through it again. Once you put it into the water, you can't control dose. Ask any pharmacist if there's any drug out there for which he would write a prescription which says take as much as you want. Secondly, you can't control who gets it. It's going to go to everybody. It's going to go to bottle-fed infants. It's going to go to people that are sick. It's going to go to people with poor kidney function. It's going to go to elderly people. It's going to go to people with poor nutrition. Ask a pharmacist if there's any drug that you can give to anyone, regardless of age, regardless of nutritional or health status. They'll laugh in your face.
Stay there. Got to come right back. Very good points from Dr. Paul Connett. We're going to continue straight ahead. I'll probably keep him 5 minutes for the next hour if we can do it. And I'm getting into all the other news. Stay with us. All of you can do something. You can educate people. And this free video online at YouTube, even if you don't have a computer, go to the library and email it to your friends and family. Professor Paul Connett, Your Toxic Tap Water. It's 59 minutes and 12 seconds long. There's another 10-minute video I did a few weeks ago that gets into all the hardcore documentation as well. Get these out to people. This is why I do this, is because I care. I mean, I have to go through a lot of trouble to keep my children away from this, and then I go to the store, and it's just almost all the water says for babies, for nurseries, give it to your baby, when the government for, 6 years now has said people under 6, don't give them any fluoride, but they push it at kids. It's diabolical, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I wanted to go over an example here that Jaron pointed out a few months ago to me, and the #1 allergy in the country causing the most deaths. It affects 21 million Americans. Of the most common allergy is peanut or other similar type of these nuts. And, I mean, peanuts got stuff in them that are good for you, but do we force all 300 million Americans to eat peanuts? Well, this is something we know isn't good, sodium fluoride. It's just incredible, and it kills so many people a year with the peanuts. And then now we see the record numbers of thyroid problems clearly associated with sodium fluoride, especially in women. We see the 7-fold increase in bone cancer in boys. I mean, this is amazing. Dr. Connett, where do we go from here? I mean, again, they're starting to back off a little bit. Are they losing the battle? I mean, is the truth coming out?
I think they are losing, yes, and I don't think they can hide the dental fluorosis, and that will always be the driver here. But when people find out that it's more than just teeth, it isn't just teeth, that concerns dentists. What concerns parents is bones, brains, thyroid, and so on. One of the extraordinary things that the EPA says in assessing damage to the bone, they said, well, the National Research Council says we should look at stage 2 skeletal fluorosis. And then they define what this is. They say it's pains in the bones, the stiffness in the joints, pains in the joints, etc. We don't have any evidence of stage 2 skeletal fluorosis in the United States. We don't have any evidence that people have pains in the joints. They don't have pains in the bone. Give me a break.
It's epidemic.
We have 1 in 3 American adults with arthritis, but nobody is looking to see if there's a connection between some of the forms of arthritis and living in a fluoridated community for 10, 20, 30, 40 years or so on.
Well said. And again, 2,000 people are hospitalized conservatively each year from peanut allergy. 150 roughly die. But I mean, I see the statistics all the time. It's in the news. All sorts of degenerative disease of the bones and skeletal system, different types of arthritis, juvenile onset. I mean, it's a plague. But drink your fluoride.
Yeah. You know what's crazy about this? You know, there are certain things in this life we can't do anything about. You know, fate can give us a raw deal at any moment. Any moment we can have a heart attack. Any moment something is going to happen to us. The doctor's going to tell us we got cancer. There are a lot of things we can't do anything about.